Danny, thank you so much for inviting me
Yeah,
into your
thanks for
kitchen.
coming. Of course. Thanks for being here.
Also Italian, very excited
good.
to make some more, always learning a new dish. Can you tell me a little bit about what we're going to make tonight?
Yeah, we're starting with a cherry tomato sauce, kind of keeping it simple. We got a bunch of cherry tomatoes. We're going to roast those in the oven for most of the time.
Great.
We're going to make some pesto. We've got some chicken marinating. We've got some fresh corn. I made some fresh pasta, so we got a lot, hopefully enough.
I'm so excited. All right, put me to work. Tell me what you need me to do,
We're going to start with some garlic. I need you to take out maybe 4 or 5 cloves.
Okay.
And then peel them.
Okay, so I'm not bad at cooking, but I'm not a chef, so you got to let me know when I'm doing it.
I usually just cut off the end here, and then it peels really easily.
Oh, okay, interesting.
And I'm just gonna throw them in this baking dish. So once they're peeled, we just throw them in. This is like a simple recipe, nothing fussy or fancy.
Oh, okay, awesome. All right, I got 3, there's 4. Okay, what should I do with the skin here?
Just you can throw them right in here. That could be our little trash bucket.
All right, and then other garlic there. And then you said you cut off the end. Which end of it?
This end here. Just trim that.
And then just peel it off?
And then the peel should just come off.
Great. Nice.
And then I'm adding some thyme from my garden here.
Perfect.
Throw that in. And then we're just gonna drizzle the whole thing in olive oil, a little salt, put it in the oven, get that out of the way so then we can move on to the other parts.
Love that.
That's kind of the first deal.
Oh, so tell me a little bit about your inspiration, how you became a chef like this and where you learned some of these recipes.
Yeah, well, I used to be a lawyer. I was a lawyer for about 10 years. And then a few years ago when my grandmother passed away, I got really inspired to start making her recipes.
Yeah.
I was very close with her. She was Italian-American, a great cook. And so I really just started learning her recipes. And then I got really obsessed with making fresh pasta and making it in different colors and different shapes.
Yeah.
So it kind of snowballed, but I just started learning my grandmother's recipes.
That's awesome. You incorporate so much color into your dishes. Like, it's one of the first things I noticed about everything that you do. Like, it's really different. Like, pasta is not, doesn't have to just look like what you buy in the store.
Yeah, so I make...
Or what you get at Olive Garden
right.
or something like that, right?
I make a lot of fresh pasta that uses different vegetables, herbs, spices, all different things to get different, basically every color of the rainbow you can get using some sort of natural ingredient. So, you know, my daughters are still young, so I do a lot of colorful pasta for them and pasta like their favorite characters and things like that, so.
That's really neat. And tell me a little bit about the family. Yeah, so you've got 2 daughters and your husband, and you know, how to become a dad, you definitely had to work real hard. How did that happen?
Yeah. So my husband Steve and I have been together for almost 18 years.
Oh,
we met when I was in college, and we've been married for 10, and we have 2 daughters.
Awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's great.
My older daughter is almost 4, and our younger is 10 months.
Nice.
So busy.
And then how did you...
Let me throw this in the oven.
Yeah, throw that in.
All right, so why don't you shuck the corn?
Okay.
I'm gonna make some pesto.
Okay, where should I put the...
Yeah, let's get our little trash bin over here.
Let's get that back
Just
over
throw
here.
everything in there.
Fantastic. Okay, cool.
And while you're doing that, I'm gonna make a quick pesto.
Ooh.
You know, pesto purists, they do it in the mortar and pestle, but we don't have time for that. We're doing it simple.
That's all right.
Here.
This is good. We need more quicker recipes in our lives as busy dads, for sure.
Yeah, this is an easy one.
That's awesome. So what are you doing? You're putting that in there?
So this is a bunch of basil. Some is from my garden. I did not have enough, so some is store-bought.
Good to know. We don't all have to have the perfect garden.
Right,
to make
exactly.
awesome meals.
So this, I'm gonna just puree this with some garlic and pine nuts, lemon juice, salt, blend that up, and add olive oil and cheese.
Perfect.
Simple.
Nicely. So you became a dad 4 years ago. Tell me about that process.
It's something that we talked about for a long time.
Yeah.
I'd always wanted to be a dad ever since I was young.
Really? You remember wanting to be a dad?
Yeah,
like, as a
somewhere in my
teenager?
parents' house they have something from kindergarten where it was like, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And mine was a dad.
No way.
So
I did not have that same feeling growing up. So I'm always interested when I hear that, because that's not any kind of the information I got growing up. Like, that was not a thing you would inspire.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I have 2 brothers, very family oriented, a lot of aunts and uncles and grandparents and cousins. So I don't know. I grew up
Well, what's it
wanting
mean?
a family.
What do you? Hey, what are you barking at?
Oh no, we better move that cheese because otherwise he's gonna be barking the whole time.
When to be a dad?
When I was
from
real
early
young,
life,
yeah.
And then when did you and your husband start thinking about it, and then how did that happen?
I think we had talked about it early on, like, hey, you know. But I was 21 when we met. I was not seriously thinking about being a dad, but it was
Yeah.
more like one day we could do that. And then for a while, you know, we were kind of getting our life in order. I was in law school when we met. We moved around a lot. We had these tiny apartments in New York City. And then maybe 4 or 5 years before our daughter was born, we started looking into it. We looked into everything: adoption, fostering, surrogacy, just kind of trying to understand what the options were and the lay of the land.
And you landed on surrogacy.
We did use an egg donor and a surrogate, and that process, you know, was a couple years before she was born. But it was really, you know, I feel very lucky because there's a lot of people who are in IVF for many years, and it's very hard. With both of our kids, the surrogate was pregnant on the first transfer, so
that's great.
we had a relatively easy time.
That's really great.
All right, I'm gonna grind this now.
Yeah.
Ready for a little noise? All right, I'm gonna add some olive oil now.
Oh yeah. That looks.
Then I'm gonna throw in some cheese, and then this is gonna
What
be
kind of
done.
cheese is that?
That was pecorino romano.
Romano, nice.
I'm gonna put a little parmesan too. Get a little dual cheeses going.
When you're done, you can just put some right over my mouth. Okay, that'd be great. Nice. That looks so good. So now you're a dad, and who's your role model figuring out how to be a dad?
I do get a lot of inspiration from my own parents and my own father.
great.
I have a great relationship with them, and growing up, my dad worked full time, and he was the breadwinner, and my mom was either going back to school or working part time and doing more childcare. But he was also very present. He's a social worker. He's big on feelings and you know, making us feel heard. And then probably the other inspirations are my two brothers. I'm the middle child, but both my brothers had kids before I did.
Oh, okay. So a little older.
The kids are a little older, yeah. And both of them, I mean, from observing, are very present fathers and very present partners. And they both work full time, but they're also making dinner and being involved on the weekend and you know, doing everything a parent does.
Yeah.
So.
Do you think it was like that for our dad's generation and their dad's generation?
Oh no, definitely not. My dad's father I never met. He died before I was born, but he also was not present. As far as I know, was not close to my dad or you know, a real father figure. My grandfather, my mom's side, is still alive. He's 99.
Wow, 99. That deserves a slow clap right there. That is impressive. Wow.
He just had his birthday. We went up. I mean, he's a big inspiration for me
Really?
as a person.
Yeah.
Definitely. But certainly when my mom was growing up, you know, fatherhood was different for him than it is now for me, just generationally.
Do you think they would say it's harder today?
I think so. I mean, I don't know. I'm sure it was hard back then. I don't want to undersell what they did. But, you know, I think nowadays my parents look at their grandkids dealing with social media and cell phones and a lot of things that they didn't have to deal with. Just as like a real challenge.
Absolutely. What's the best part about being a dad?
I love spending time with my kids. I know it's a lot and it can be very hard sometimes in the middle of the night. They're both horrible sleepers.
Oh.
But I love seeing the world through their eyes and they're being amazed by everything. And I think my daughter's hilarious and I love being around her and being around the baby too. I just love getting to see them grow. I just love it. I don't know.
No, I feel the same way. Love my kid. Stresses me out, but he is also the best thing in my life. It makes me so happy all the
Absolutely. Why don't I hand you a cucumber?
Cool.
Just slice
My
it.
son's favorite food now, so this is
Perfect.
good. Well, chicken fingers, and then cucumber. So could be worse. 1 cucumber chopped up.
We can put in here, and some of this lettuce again is from our garden, and some is supplemented.
Really?
Because we don't
That's
quite have
so
enough
cool.
lettuce yet.
That's
to,
really nice. Thanks for sharing this with us.
Of course,
tonight.
yeah.
It's really great. So, when do you feel most like a good dad?
I feel most like a good dad probably at the end of the day.
Yeah.
You know, I usually do bedtime for my older daughter, and we usually read 3 books
Nice.
in her bed. And then I usually sit with her for a couple minutes. You know, she goes through stages of when it's easy or hard to fall asleep, but those moments where we're kind of at peace.
Yeah.
And we're together, and I just get to share that with her. And then I'm the type of dad who's like, then, you know, I might be like, oh, this day was so hard. And then as soon as she's asleep, I'm like looking at pictures. I'm like, oh, we had such a good day.
It's such a good day, right?
Even though in the
funny.
moments it can feel, you know, overwhelming.
Yeah.
But then when they're asleep, you're like, oh, it wasn't
Yeah.
so bad.
My bedtime routine with Gabe is, well, we should start it earlier, but I'm just like, the end of the day is like the only real quality time I feel like I get with him. So I definitely extended a little bit past when I should. And then I definitely take him to bed, and I don't do the best job of getting him down, but thank goodness he's a good sleeper.
Yeah.
And he will tell me like, okay, I'm tired now. I'm like, great, all right, we're gonna go to bed. And then he is usually out very quickly at that point. So I'm very lucky there, but I savor every moment I've got with him at the end of the day. And so I was thinking about, I'm really glad you have a great role model, and many of them in your life. That's really nice. You know, where do you think you get your sense of masculinity though? Because that is something that I think a lot of us struggle with, is understanding how we understand that role within ourselves, you know? And I think about like, how do I meld like traditional strength and modern caregiving and try to be, you know, the best person I can be? Because the messaging I get around that, at least I see, is still very, you know, it's still very fitness driven, muscle driven, alpha male driven, and I'm like, that doesn't really fit for me. And I'm curious, what is the messaging you get? How do you feel like you're doing the best you can be?
I mean, I think I had a very negative association with masculinity when I was growing up.
Yeah.
It was like, this is the model of how you're supposed to be. Tough and into sports and, you know, a certain way. And this is who I was. I mean, from the youngest ages, I remember a sense that that wasn't right. Who I was not right. I was supposed to be in this mold, and, you know, just society was telling me, or just the world around me was telling me, you know, if you're not that way, there's something wrong with you. And as I grew up, I think I shifted to be like, well, why do I need to care about that definition?
Do you think you realized that in high school, or is this college later in life?
I think I realized it in college after I came out, and I was like, that doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a man, so what I like is also masculine in its own way.
Absolutely.
I think after becoming a parent, I think I realized how shallow that traditional definition is, at least for me. I think about so many aspects of parenthood that maybe traditionally were done by women are so much tougher than the things that, you know, we're told is tough and manly. You know, being up with your kids all night is a lot tougher than anything else.
It is, yeah. It's like, would you rather be with your kids for 8 hours a day and entertaining and providing all the snacks and naps and monitoring every minute, or be at work? I'm like, monitoring your kids all day is harder than being at work.
It's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work.
And even I think about, like, you know, I think of traditional masculinity as being like not having a lot of feelings and like holding it in, but or being really rough and tough. But if you think about like a toddler having a tantrum, at the end of the day, when you are so frustrated and you just want it to be over, like learning how to be in touch with your emotions, stay calm in that moment, stay present, like help your child through it, that is a lot tougher than flying off the handle and like being angry and loud.
It is, yeah. Like, just like ordering your kids around is not That usually, I'm not successful with it.
Right.
It is not working in my household too. And then, how I always feel stronger myself is like, okay, I'm understanding my own emotions and history and recognizing, being empathetic to their situation, being, okay, this is why I feel like maybe that he's acting out. This is why he's having these feelings. And the second I do that and I actually take control of my emotions, that is when I feel the strongest.
Yeah, and that is not easy to do.
No, it's not. I'm still working on it quite a bit.
It's something that you work on forever. But honestly, I think for me, I don't know, this is weird to say, but sort of masculinity and even femininity, like, it feels a little irrelevant to my life now. I think because I grappled with it so much when I was a kid, and then coming out, like, what does it mean to be masculine? Oh, those definitions don't work for me, so I'm going to just, that concept isn't important to me anymore. So now when I think about caregiving versus, breadwinning versus these different things, I don't always think of them in terms of masculinity because that definition sort of failed me. Here's an example. I think about some of my peers who are straight and who are dads, and if one of them decided to leave their job and be a stay-at-home parent, you have to think about your finances and logistics and your personality. I think for some men also probably maybe find it emasculating or have to grapple with, like, what does it mean if my wife is the breadwinner? Yeah. What does it mean if I'm the only dad who shows up to this music class in the middle of the day? For me, when I left my job as a lawyer, none of that really mattered to me. I'd already dealt with all of that. Like, I don't care about being emasculated because I don't care about being masculine. So it wasn't, those thoughts were not really in my mind now as a parent. They were things I felt like I had dealt with before. Nice. But I feel like for a lot of men, like straight men, haven't really had to grapple with that. And now as they're trying to be a new type of dad, they're sort of dealing with it for the first time. So I see that among my peers a lot.
I found a grown-up dad because I felt unprepared and I wanted to be a different kind of father than I had growing up. Today, Grown Up Dad is a nationally broadcast TV show across PBS, and we're working directly with dads and experts around the world to share important stories and advice so we all find the joy and strength of being a father. Now, Grown Up Dad is a nonprofit. We operate from the generosity of viewers like you. So please hit that subscribe button and join our small Dad Collab groups. Go to that website, grab some merch, and together, let's make fatherhood better for everyone.
Yeah, I think about my own journey here, my own mental health too, and realizing like how much, to be the dad I want to be now, how much I have to confront the issues I had growing up too, and those traumas, those frustrations, things that I was never taught and never had to think about. And so I'm both like very happy that I am starting to think about those things because I can't be a better dad unless I start to confront them. But at the same time, I'm like, oh man, I've never had to confront these before, and I still don't feel like I have all the tools to do that, even though I've definitely, had a therapist off and on for a number of years now, and just trying to deal with different parts of like when parents weren't around, when you were by yourself, when what makes you angry and why, and like what's setting you off, and then when you see that in your son or your daughter, and you're like, oh man, okay, I know exactly what's going through his head right now. I did the same thing happen to me, and I better confront this differently. I better attack this differently because otherwise I'm going to cause him the same problems I have now.
Yeah, I mean, even though I feel very grateful for my parents, and I think they were good role models. Growing up in the 90s, as a boy who was playing with all the girls, who was, came out as gay, like, I certainly had a lot of issues around that of feeling like I was wrong or didn't fit in that I had to work on later in life. And even now as a parent, I think about what is the model I want to set for my daughters who have two dads. And, even though I have thought, like, I don't care about being masculine or not, like, what do I want them to see? Who are the people in their life I want them to see? So it kind of never goes away.
They see everything. You don't think they do. They really pick up on it. And you're like, oh, shoot, he got that from me, and I know I did that for him. That's true. Tell me about, like, your own kind of journey on your pasta, because you do things very colorfully.
Yeah, so I started when I was still working as a lawyer. And when my older daughter was born, I took 6 months off. And the week I returned to work, my grandmother passed away. So that was a low point, and I was not sleeping. So that's when I started making pasta, making her recipes, just to feel close with her. And I started taking videos of what I was doing, posting them on social media. And that's when I started getting a little more creative. Like social media kind of pushed me to try different things, try to catch people's attention. So you think of like a spinach pasta, the green pasta, it's very traditional. But I started using roasted red peppers and cabbage and all different vegetables, turmeric, different spices to get all these colors. And then started making them for my daughter. I started making her favorite cartoon characters. I started with...
Like who?
I started with Peppa Pig. That was her favorite. Then I did Bluey. I did Bluey and Bingo.
Okay, good. If you didn't move over to Bluey and Bingo, it would have been very sad.
Yes, I've done Bluey a couple times. That's been a very popular one online. I've done... then people started requesting, so I've done some celebrities into pasta. So it's like...
Recently, I think you just did a Garfield one, too,
I did Garfield. Right? I've done some Taylor Swift, some Beyonce, some SZA. So there's some pasta cooking and pasta art kind of in combination there.
Yeah, and then I think I remember reading a story about how you were asked by someone to start making Oreo pasta.
Yeah.
Can you tell me about that story?
So I started posting videos on TikTok, and I was just posting, here's how you make pasta dough, here's how you make a shape. And someone requested Oreo pasta. And I was like, no, it sounds so dumb. And then they did this thing where every day they were requesting it. And they'd say, this is my second day of requesting Oreo pasta. This is my third day.
Wow.
So I'm like, why not? Like, let's just have fun with it. So I ground up some Oreos. I turned them into pasta. They tasted like Oreos in pasta form. I have not made it again. But that kind of started me being like, you know what, does not have to be super serious. I can have some fun with this and just see what happens.
Well, it also, in a way, it really was also like you recognizing you didn't have to be so traditional with what you were doing, right?
Yeah, I do get in trouble sometimes online because there's a lot of Italian-American food purists. We're like, you cannot use that ingredient, you cannot cook it that way. And then of course I'm going in some very weird direction, so it's like blowing their minds. And I obviously have a lot of respect for the tradition. I learned from my grandmother, and that's who I'm inspired by. Yeah. But I also am trying to create new traditions for my daughter, and I don't think you have to stick with just, that's my opinion, you don't have to stick with just what's been traditional. You can innovate a little bit.
In a way, to me, that really felt like kind of how dads are today, too, and how you don't have to stick with the tradition, and how we're really able to be really any kind of dad we want to be today, and that's not something that the generations before us have been able to do, honestly, right? And so the idea that, yeah, we can make an Oreo pasta, we can try it out, didn't really fit,
right,
but maybe
right.
we can make a lot of other things and try to figure out what's right for us. Like, that felt very honest to me. It's like, hey, I don't have to do the exact traditional thing every time.
Yeah, I mean, I see a lot of dads now who are involved in a way that, fathers before were not, certainly. Sometimes I go to a music class, I'm the only dad, but sometimes there's a lot of dads, and a lot of dads at school pickup, and a lot of dads who are more involved, and, you certainly see a change happening.
Do you have a good network of guy friends, of dad friends? That's something I need to work on myself.
Yeah, it's hard. When we first moved here, our daughter was 18 months old, and I didn't know anyone, and I was going to all the classes and the play groups, and it was mostly moms. I didn't meet a lot of dads through that. Now I feel like I have met more dads through my daughter's preschool. You see more dads that drop off and pick up, and have made some really good friends. But it's hard to be in your late 30s in a new place trying to make friends.
Yes. And you're tired all the time, and you always have something to do. I mean, my struggle is always with maybe I'm a good dad today, but I'm not sure I'm being a good husband then, or I'm not being a good friend. Or days I'm like, I was a good husband today. Kind of maybe wasn't the best for something else. That's really It's one of the things I struggle with myself.
I definitely struggle similarly with just staying in touch with friends, even friends that are very important to me.
Yeah.
Just keeping those connections when the days get so busy. I'm a very disorganized person too. Just like trying to get anything done during the day that I was hoping to get done. Like, it's just so hard to get to anything outside of like your immediate next thing.
I know. All right. What's one thing you do for you, though, that actually not involving your kids, something you do just for you?
I feel like
I can see you wincing already
know,
at that question. That's really hard, right?
I feel like when I started cooking and making pasta, it was for me, and then it became more of my job. And I still am very grateful that I get to do this.
Yeah, this is
But
fun.
I don't feel the same way about it as I did before when it was just a hobby.
Yeah. Is there any cooking you do just for you, or is it really? Does it really feel like work? That's hard.
I don't.
Well, let me say this. So, background's in photography, and I don't bring a camera anymore to my family functions. You know? I definitely have my iPhone, but like, that's been hard. But I recognize, like, I feel like if I have that in my hand, I'm working. Whereas if I'm just there, I can be a little more present and not feel like I have to take photos. So, I'm sure you have the same feeling with cooking, because you do it so much and it's usually for a purpose instead of enjoyment anymore. But I'm trying to find ways to shoot again, to take pictures again, and just be in it and like do it. Remember why I love doing this in the first place.
I mean, I don't know. I feel grateful, but I also don't feel like I do anything just for myself. It's not work now.
That's hard. Maybe we should definitely. I want to help you find that, man.
Yeah.
I think that's really important. Right now, my son's 7, and so coaching baseball has been surprisingly relaxing. I mean, it's incredibly stressful because they're 7, but also I get so much joy out of like throwing the baseball with him and helping him get better and helping him see the joy of baseball. So that's been really good lately for me. Oh, hello. There we go. One of the best meals you made to win over your husband.
Oh my God. Well, I think he'll laugh at this question because when we first started dating, I wasn't cooking a lot.
Really?
We met in college, then I was in law school, then we had these tiny apartments in New York, I was working a ton. We did a lot of takeout back in those days. But the one thing I did do early on to win him over was to make my mother and grandmother's recipe for eggplant parm.
Oh, yes.
My husband's a vegetarian, and so when he would come to family dinners, they always made sure to have some eggplant parm for him, which is one of his favorites. So a few years into dating for Valentine's Day, at that point I was not a cook, but I learned the recipe from my mom. She told me how to make the sauce, how to make the eggplant. I did it all. I cooked it at my neighbor's apartment. She was in on it. I sent Steve out to the store. When he came back, everything was out, ready to go.
I am someone who, I really enjoy a good eggplant parm. I feel like not as many restaurants carry it anymore. And if I see it on the menu, I'm tempted to get it just because they don't always have it.
Yes. All right, I'm going to check on the tomato sauce.
All right, let's check on this sauce.
All right. It's bubbling in there, looking good.
Oh, that looks so good.
I'm going to leave that in the oven until we get some pasta water. And then, all right, I think we can add the pasta. It's not boiling too much, but I think it's going to be good.
All right, let's get that. So can you tell us kind of looks like two types of pasta,
Yeah,
right?
so this is like a rigatoni penne.
Right. You made this?
Yes. This I used a machine
That's
to
awesome.
extrude it.
Okay.
It's fresh pasta. And then the other one is a fettuccine that I rolled out with a pasta maker and then cut with a pasta maker.
Okay, good. I feel good that you dropped one because I always end up dropping some in the process of when I do this too, and I'm like, oh, I feel so bad.
Yeah, I'm not
perfect.
I'm not a purist on pretty much anything, and I'm very messy.
What do you think? I mean, should I rotate these? Because
Yeah, this
the
one's
cast
cooking a
iron-
lot better.
Yeah, so I think I'm gonna rotate these around. Yeah. Why is pasta so comforting?
You know, there's so many different cultures that use noodles in some form, whether it's pasta or any other type of noodle, that I really feel like it brings people together. Like, there's so many pasta fans out there. Something about it just feels like comfort and home, and yeah, for sure.
Oh, look who came to say hello.
Hello, Bartley. He's often in the kitchen when I'm cooking. 'Cause he's
He's a smart dog.
He's 14 years old, but still
Aw.
very, very food motivated.
All right, what do you think, Chef? These all
Yeah,
right?
those are looking good.
All right.
You're hired.
Yeah.
And then we'll mix it all together.
What do you guys making?
We're making some pasta. Surprise, surprise.
Not at all surprised by that.
Okay. Can you eat that much pasta? Do you like always taste test everything for this household?
Pretty much. If it's a vegetarian, I taste test it. We eat pasta an embarrassing number of times. But I don't mind. I love it.
That is awesome. Why? What feelings do you get from pasta? Do you have the same because I can tell he's got it from this family tradition, and do you get the same feeling too from yourself and just
yeah.
that history, or is it just you see him enjoy it and you're like, I'm gonna eat it, it's lovely.
I think early on when we first started dating, a millennium ago,
And then just
Yeah,
his
just
family
throw it
made
in.
such great dishes. His mom makes this eggplant parm that's incredible. We always have pasta.
yeah.
So I pretty much fell in love with his family's cooking and him at the same time, and they're kind of inextricably linked. And so it's been really fun over the last several years to see him kind of take these recipes and make different adjustments to them
thank you.
and make things that, I don't know, are fun.
It's got to be so much fun to just watch him be able to cook all the time for the family, and then your daughters are gonna understand what he does for a living all the time. He's gonna see it. It's gonna be great. Oh, that is so cool.
We're gonna mix it all together. Whoop. It's sticking right in the pot.
As you're plating this, what do you think? As you're plating this, do you think there are a lot of other dads like us kind of thinking about masculinity, thinking about our roles and the example we're trying to set for our kids?
Yeah, I think I see a lot of dads, both in our orbit or just dads I see in different contexts and different activities and things, who are actively trying to make a different role for themselves. Either they had growing up or that we saw growing up.
Yeah.
I have friends and my brothers who are very active fathers, and I feel like there's not maybe any stigma to it, or there's not as much as maybe there used to be of being an involved dad. But at the same time, I still think there's a big imbalance. There's still a lot more moms in everything I go to.
Yeah. I still think a lot of systems are set up for moms too.
Yeah, there's just more. Even in this town where we live, which is pretty progressive, there's a Facebook group, the moms group, where all the activities are and everything, happens, and we can't join because no dads are allowed. But there's not really a dads group, and we don't have a mom in our family, so we're kind of missing out on that.
That's hard.
There's definitely still a lot of mom things, but I'm seeing more and more dads get involved too.
That's great. We should reach out to those moms. We need to be like, how do we get the single dads, the two dad families involved in the mom group activities? Because our kids want to be involved too, right?
Right, exactly. Yep.
All right.
You need to go potty? All right, I need to take a toddler to the bathroom.
Okay. Seriously. So good.
All right, so I did not tell my daughter to say this, but when I took her to the bathroom, she whispered in my ear,
I love being your child.
"Oh, I love being your daddy."
Oh.
And I said, "I love being your daddy." So those are the moments that make it all worth it.
That does make it all worth it.
For sure.
Seriously, there are those days I'm like, do I place too much emphasis on a hug for my son? I'm like, no. Everything is better when I get his hug randomly. Like without asking, when they do that, it's just like the best. I'm really glad she did that. Let me see it.
That's kind of a lot. All right, who's hungry?
That's great, Chef. Thank you so much. All right, we are gonna dig in. That looks so good.
Yeah, let's do it.
Perfect.
Thank you for being the best sous chef I could ask for.
Thank you so much. This is
Yeah,
delicious.
of course.
Thanks for
Thanks
chatting
for the
with
help.
me.